Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. It's time to talk about happiness and family. Lots of people are spending a lot more time with their families than they're used to, and other people are separated from their families by shelter-in-place orders. Whatever your situation, we've got some insight to share around the ways all of us can create a happier family life. Let's get started. Hi, Mindy.
Hey, Marie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Marie.
Today we're continuing our Happier at Home book series. This is a book written by best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, designed to make our homes places of greater simplicity, comfort, and love. The book tackles one topic related to happiness each month from September through May. Last month in episode 71, we talked about increasing happiness in body, and this month we're talking about happiness and family. Gretchen urges us to hold tightly and appreciate our families more this month, and that's exactly what we set off to do. And then a pandemic hit, and family togetherness got real quick. Am I right, Mindy and Julie?
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, what did you guys think about this chapter overall? Mindy, you're smiling.
I was just laughing. I actually looked back to see when Gretchen wrote this book, and she wrote this book in 2012. And I think, how did she know that in 2020 we would be going through this book and that in March we would literally be quarantined with our families?
That is right.
So it gave it whole new meaning of being together and adjusting to doing everything at home, to include me trying to figure out how to cut everybody's hair.
Yes, for sure. It was very timely. Julie, what did you think about the chapter?
Yeah, I was kind of laughing too. It's ironic and timely that we were asked to focus on our family, but then we're also being asked to practice social distancing. So if your family doesn't live with you, it kind of has a different, whole different meaning. And it's just very timely in that, it's a good chance to remember to be grateful for our families, and we're being forced to find some pretty creative ways to be together.
Sure. I know. I've been really impressed with the different ways that I've seen people even doing family meetings with people that don't live with them over Zoom. I thought, wow, that's a really cool idea.
Yes. And how's your house holding up, Marie?
With everybody home 24/7?
Yes.
It's holding up. Yeah, I was laughing because I thought this was a great chapter, and I went into the month excited to try and meet some family goals. But as they say, the best laid plans. And honestly, I had looked at this chapter at the beginning of the month and wrote a bunch of notes. I looked at it in the first few days. They're almost comical going back and looking at them now. I just did not anticipate what happened at all. So this is going to be a really interesting podcast because we get our in real time thoughts on, the whole coronavirus thing and how it affected our families. All right. Well, Julie, what were your goals for this month? Always when we're doing these chapters, we usually start out with what are the things that we hope to accomplish, and what did you hope to accomplish?
Well, I actually read the chapter back at the end of February. Her threshold rule that she talks about it right at the beginning seemed like a really great idea. And that's where each time I open my garage, pulling up, into my driveway, open my garage, and then walk through my back door into my kitchen, I repeat, how happy and grateful I am to be home.
Okay.
Just taking some small amount of time to be intentional about, reflecting on my family. But then the second week of March hit, and now I have to force myself to say, I'm happy to be home now. When all I really want is to be somewhere else. I am grateful for my home, just not so much being confined to it for the many hours on end. That was one of them. I thought that was a neat thing. But now that I've hardly left my home, I haven't returned enough to be able to put that into practice. So hopefully that's something that might happen in April.
Sure. We hope that happens in April, Julie. We really hope that happens.
Yeah, that's right.
Another one of Gretchen's goals was to have an uncomfortable conversation with a family member. And I remember thinking, no thanks. That's not for me. I'm good. Right. But I will talk about that later because that actually happened kind of spontaneously.
Okay.
And then lastly, she mentioned collaborating with her sister was a goal. And I've been working on a project that would involve my son and my daughter in different capacities. And I was so excited about that. But since the world has shut down, I really can't even think about those plans. They involve travel. And even though I know this is all just temporary, it would just seem ridiculous to even be thinking about travel right now. So that's on hold. But I found that appealing because moving toward a common goal with someone that you love is really, it just brings a lot of extra fun to a project, kind of giving you a feeling of growth. And sometimes for me, it's just as much fun to go through that process as actually reaching the goal. I found that working together on something kind of gave us a reason to call, gave us a reason to talk, gave us things to talk about. And that always makes me feel closer. So I hope we can, get back to that.
Yeah.
Especially with my adult son, he just doesn't have as much a desire as maybe my daughter just to chat, to catch up with his mom. But if there was a purpose or a reason to talk, it just made it better.
Sure. Yeah. I think those common goals just add new life to any relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Mindy, what were your goals for this month?
I really just focused on two things this month. The quarantine hit, I guess, like the second week of March, possibly. Like I read the chapter and I was still kind of ruminating on how I was going to do these things. And I'm like, okay, forget all that. Like that's all out the window.
Right.
It got very practical very quickly in my house. And it came down to two things. The first was, I joke and I say, really, how to not kill each other. But I'm going to call that conflict resolution.
Yes, that's a good one, Mindy.
Pretty that up a little bit.
Yeah. So really, I wanted us to focus on having appropriate time, not only together, but also apart, since we were at home together all the time. So my second goal was to learn our new schedule and to feel successful at home with school, church, exercise, food, and relationships.
Those are a lot of balls to juggle.
That was pretty much the entire month, was that. And the conflict resolution, of course.
While you're trying to keep all those balls in the air, you're also trying to resolve all the conflicts. That's right. So I'm excited to hear yours, Marie. Well, like I said before, I did go into the month with now I look back and think those were such naive notes that I wrote, but I just couldn't have known at the time how the month would turn out. My goals for the beginning of the month, one was to connect with extended family. It seems like Christmas, you spend a lot of time with your extended family, and then we also had a wedding in December, so it seemed like we had spent like the whole month of December with extended family. And then in January and February, you kind of enter a hibernation mode. And I felt like I really hadn't seen like my brother and sister and, different people that live in town, but I just hadn't gotten together. So I thought, well, reconnecting in March would be fun. That went out the window with shelter in place. So my second goal was strengthen family relationships. The busyness of school, work, sports, homework, they can just really suck the time away. So spending one-on-one time with each of my kids seemed like a good idea, along with having some fun all together. Well, then we were quarantined 24/7 together.
You got your wish.
Yes. I was thinking like taking him out to Starbucks one-on-one for an hour. I wasn't thinking 24/7 in our house. My third goal was to be grateful for family. I am always grateful, when I think about it, but I wanted to be more actively grateful, like notice it. Gretchen Rubin, she has a quote in the chapter from an artist that says, "I had my treasure, but it was all too easy to overlook it, to walk over it without realizing it, without appreciating how happy I was." And this quote turned out to be almost haunting as I reread it this week after this month, And my last goal went along with Gretchen's belief, that happiness doesn't always make me feel happy. She says that often happiness is best served by undertaking things that make you feel anxious, uneasy, frustrated, or stupid. So I decided to tackle something that would make me happier, but only after I got through the frustration of getting it up and running. So those were my goals for the month. I really had 4 goals. I was able to do 3 out of 4. The first one with the
Mhm.
extended family will have to come after quarantine is over.
Right.
So, Julie, tell us how your goals actually went this month.
Well, I realized that it's really easy to take things for granted until you don't have them, like the freedom to get together and be in groups and to meet up and to travel. And so while it's hard to be thankful to be home, I have tried to be more thankful for my warm, dry house with a brand new roof.
Yeah.
My comfy chair that I hardly leave. Endless possibilities for entertainment, food to cook, pets to keep me company, and surprisingly, technology that keeps us connected right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I mentioned earlier that having an uncomfortable conversation wasn't a goal this month, but it actually did happen. And like you just said, Marie, having an uncomfortable conversation won't make you feel happy, in and of itself. But in the long run, if it can improve a situation, therefore that will contribute to your increased happiness.
Right.
One night, my daughter called on my way to ESL class, and I don't think she called for this purpose, but this conversation just came up, and we were both on our way somewhere. I think she was on her way to small group. I was on my way to ESL, so we had a short time, and we both just kept apologizing to each other for having this unplanned emotional conversation on our way to something important. But I told her that there was really never a bad time to have a needed conversation. And I heard things that I really, really needed to hear from her. And I think she heard things that she needed to hear from me too. And we both were able to admit maybe how much we were alike, which, by the way, makes it hard to be critical of someone else when you're alike.
Right.
But we both just don't enjoy talking about difficult things, especially if it's going to make us emotional. Like, we just tend to want to bury those feelings.
Right.
But what we're hopefully learning is that silence is communicating something. Not saying things that are needed can communicate apathy or disinterest when that's really not the case at all. So it turned out that wasn't something that I would have wanted to do or plan, because it doesn't seem like it'll make you happy, but it really does in the long run. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how something that feels really uncomfortable in the moment, we can be so happy later over it.
Yeah. And I hope that concept sticks with me. And that kind of leads into the next area. While I don't enjoy unpleasant conversations, I still need to work on having the pleasant ones. It's kind of an effort for me to pick up the phone and make a call. I can talk myself out of it pretty easily with things like, oh, I don't really have anything new or exciting to say. It's probably not a good time. Or people think phone calls are intrusive anyway, They don't want to talk. So, but the truth is, when I speak to my family, I'm happier. It's kind of been weird with this social distancing, because that's how I've been feeling all along in relationship to my daughter and new grandson. Like, the new recommendations to distance haven't really changed that relationship that much with them. But I am very thankful that somehow it's changing how we communicate over the physical distance that was always there and will continue to be there after this is over. I talked to my daughter yesterday, and she admitted that she tends to resist technology for various reasons. But now that she's really learning to appreciate it and how it can really be a benefit to our relationship and other relationships. So I am very grateful that she kind of sees that in a new light. And how that's kind of been put into practice is we've been Skyping more. I think one of the neatest things was she joined Marco Polo, which, the three of us have used for very practical things concerning the podcast. But, when I wake up, there'll be a video there of Ezra waking up from last night's sleep or from his nap, or he's eating, or he's helping her do her job, sitting in front of the computer. And I just love it because it still seems live and spontaneous, but I can record a video whenever I want to. And she can watch it whenever she can watch it, because she's still working at home right now. So, and she can record a video whenever she has the time, and I can watch it when I have the time. And I really, really am liking that. It's fun just to see all those little videos. And I said, well, I don't have as much cuteness going on here, but you keep yours coming. So I've been sending her pet videos.
Yeah. Well, I think that the little things can tend to keep us more connected than even the big things. Like if we see little things on a regular basis, we feel more connected than if we only saw a video of like someone's high school graduation. I mean, it's the little videos that make us feel like we know each other.
Right. And not just one conversation at the end of the week, but just little things. And here's a really cool thing. Last weekend, my son-in-law decided to create what he called a forced family bonding. And we were all invited to join in a trivia game. And he set up the trivia game. I think it was on GimKit, which I wasn't sure I had ever heard of.
Yeah.
And then we were also all on Zoom so that we could see each other playing the trivia game and hear each other and stuff. So that was kind of cool. And I really appreciated his attempt to like, okay, let's try to get us all together. So I think if this goes on much longer, there'll probably be a lot more of that kind of stuff.
Well, I was thinking the company that's making out the best in this shutdown is Zoom. I wish I had money to invest in them.
I know, Marie, you are so right. Everybody I talk to is using it. We're using it for everything. Life groups, online classes, everything. Family meetings.
Yeah, I even watched last Sunday night, Michael W. Smith just was in his living room and sang for 45 minutes. And it was just, he had prayer time and he had his pastor come speak for like a minute. And I just love his music. And it was just the neatest thing because in the comment section, you could see all the people joining. And I saw some of my family members joining. And so it was kind of like, we're worshiping together. Yeah. It was really neat.
Oh, that is really cool. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Julie. It sounds like the shutdown did not keep you from connecting with family, which was the whole goal for this month.
Right. It just looked different than I thought.
Yeah. Mindy, how did your goals go this month?
When I said how to not kill each other with my first goal, working on conflict resolution, spending appropriate time together as well as appropriate time apart. I know that we love each other as a family, but we have never spent this much time at home, just the six of us. And Abby came home for spring break and she never went back. So I say that because obviously you're going to have conflict arise. Things are going to come to a head. I wanted all of us to be able to talk about those things, kind of grow even in our emotions and our communication with one another and have fun together. I'm all about having fun, as you guys know. And so I wanted to make this time a lot of fun and also just a great memory that we could look fondly back on. But you have, basically I've got 3 boys and all this testosterone running through their systems right now with the ages that they are. And just think of a caged animal, and that's what I've got. Right.
You're living with 3 caged animals.
I'm living with 3 caged animals.
You're the ringmaster, Mindy.
Yes. And so that's it. And so for me to be able to let them have free time, know when things are getting out of control and send certain people outside or downstairs or, now it's time to separate. So it actually has been going well. I'm not going to say that we have accomplished anything amazing or that we have finished this goal. This is a work in progress, but I will say that space, sunshine, and warmth make a world of difference.
Right. For sure.
So my second goal, though, really it's been the biggest adjustment, and that's with learning how to be successful with our new schedule of school, church, exercise, food, and relationships, feeling successful at home, learning to do school at home. When Abby came home, her college actually last minute said, basically, you need to move out in the next 2 weeks. You're not going to be coming back until August. She's officially online for the rest of the semester. And then my boys' school, they've just put out enrichment activities at this point, though Grant's dual enrollment and AP classes are still moving forward, though we just got an email that next week school online will be mandatory. And so just getting the kids used to doing school at home has been interesting because we only have 1 laptop that they have shared. And so basically, Abby's got her own laptop, but the boys are having to share 1 laptop right now. I think we're going to end up with another laptop or 2.
Right.
If everybody's doing school at home. But it's a work in progress again. Church, this has been one of the sweetest gifts, I think, that the church, the whole body of Christ has experienced. Or maybe that's just me, but I have loved that churches have gone online so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I love that the word is just going forth, and that in particular, I have replaced the word quarantine with the word fasting.
Mm.
The Lord is using this time, even the season of Lent, as a time of fasting from all of the things that we used to hold so dear and so close, all of the strivings that we were stressed out about, all of the things we spent money on, all of the time we invested in things. And you really have to prioritize those things. But having church at home, seeing my family sit around the living room, watching church together, and then each of us taking notes and talking afterwards, I feel like that's my life group right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're all old enough we can have an engaging conversation afterwards. That has just been one of the sweetest things that I've seen. Moving on to the topic of exercise, obviously when the weather's nice and we can get outside, it's lovely. But being March, being in the Northeast, it's not always that way. And so us figuring out how to be motivated at home, it took a long time of us being bored and lazy before we got sick of that and decided we really had to move and do something else. We have equipment in the house, but like our Y is putting content online. My Zumba instructor just sent out a playlist on YouTube. We are finally figuring out how to work out at home and do a good job because we were just in the habit of going to the Y. So without being able to do that, it's just hard to be motivated in your own house, I guess. I don't know about you guys.
No, I've been experiencing that too, Mindy.
Okay. The topic of food, this has been super fun. I stocked up at the beginning of the month with food, and then I went ahead and listed all of the meals that I could make with the food that I bought. And each day I'm posting a menu on the refrigerator of what the children can expect from me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's not necessarily me cooking each of those meals, but it's just like what they can get, what they're allowed to have, because I'm trying to ration it and us not all eat all of the food in the first couple of days.
Sure.
So I've learned that they've actually abided by that menu on the fridge, and that even for the snack suggestion, that's what they're choosing. And so I think they actually appreciate being told what they're allowed to eat and when.
Right. Well, and you appreciate not having to run out to the grocery store, because with 3 boys in the house, you could easily buy snacks on Monday and need snacks again on Wednesday.
Exactly. And they would snack all day long.
Yeah.
When I found like my family doesn't tend to just go in and look, they have to be told like, this is in the fridge.
Yes.
This is what you need to eat. Like, so it doesn't go bad. We kind of have the opposite.
Exactly.
It's like, it'll go bad if I don't tell them to eat it.
Right. Okay. So the last topic is actually kind of interesting. Relationships was one of the things that we were also obviously adjusting in this month. This took an interesting turn when Abby had to move home. She had just started dating a guy named Joey.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey is a wonderful guy. He'd actually FaceTimed our family several months ago and asked Bryce and asked the boys for permission to date Abby Ray. And it was one of the sweetest FaceTimes we've ever had. However, Joey ended up coming to visit us in our home and is here right now with us so that Bryce and the boys could meet him in person for the first time. It's a really big difference with the boys saying, sure, he's a great guy, he can date our sister. But now that the boys are seeing them in person every day, Joey will be here for about a week. There have been a lot of different feelings, emotions, seeing Abby and Joey together. And they all will say, oh, Joey is a great guy. I really like him, but she's my sister. Like, I want my sister and I want her to love me first. And so they all feel like they've almost essentially like gone down a notch because Joey is now the apple of her eye. But I think that what a gift of time we've had to be able to be a part of this new relationship, dealing with the feelings and emotions with her siblings. And it's a big adjustment for the siblings. I didn't realize.
Well, it sounds like the quarantine has brought a lot of new experiences to your household.
For sure. All right, Marie, I would love to hear how your goals went this month.
All right. Well, as I said, the extended family connections, they were out the window. But my second goal of strengthening immediate family relationships, that actually had a lot of success due to the fact that my kids unexpectedly have only gone to school 3 days in the month of March. And it's kind of funny because my girls had just gotten their hair highlighted on March 3rd. That was an election day here, so they had the day off from school. And they were so thrilled about it. And then they only went to school 2 days after that.
Oh.
And last night, one of them said, Mom, on a list of things I regret, spending money to get my hair done, and now no one even sees it.
Oh, how funny.
It'll be all grown out by the time we ever even go back to school. So, yes, there's a lot of cute hairstyles that are going unseen this month.
Aww.
But the positives of being all together is the great conversations we've been able to have. And I was just thinking, it's not like they've been super deep, but like last night's an example of something that we would not normally do. Last night, we sat around talking about the correct way to do a push-up and the merits of each way and how they work different muscles. And we watched a YouTube video on how to correctly do a military push-up, and we tried it out. And we had a planking contest. And of course, my high school son, he won both of these. But like in a normal spring school week, we wouldn't have been asking questions about push-ups. We wouldn't have been looking for any answers on YouTube. We wouldn't be able to just sit around and follow the rabbit trail of wherever a conversation leads. And so I have really treasured those kinds of things. But the brightest spot in our whole month has been the birth of Pepper Jane, our first grandchild. And she is a week old today as we're recording. And it has been so fun to have extra time this week to go and see her. And for my younger kids to have extra time to see their new niece. My husband isn't traveling for work, and so he has time, and the kids aren't in school. And I think that we'll always look back on this time of everything having shut down as, the time that we got to spend extra time with Pepper, because normally my husband would be traveling, the girls would be busy with school and sports, and you just wouldn't have the time on a weekday evening to say, hey, we'll bring you dinner and we'll hang out for a while. So that's been really special. But my last goal, the one that came about because Gretchen pointed out that happiness doesn't always make me feel happy, I decided that we needed to do some things to gain some long-term happiness. And when school shut down on March 5th, I decided that the next day, March 6th, was the day to rip the Band-Aid off. My kids were going to learn to do dishes and laundry. And this may seem like a no-brainer to some moms, but I have never enjoyed teaching my kids to do chores. And frankly, I never enjoy the way they do them.
Right.
But with so much time at home, I thought, I'm not going to be the only one doing all the work around here while they're laying around on their phones. Like, it's different if they're in school and they're at sports and their days are long and filled up. And then I feel like, we're each doing our jobs. But now I wanted the freedom to be able to enjoy some downtime like they were doing. And I wanted to be able to come and go and see my new granddaughter without coming home to a bunch of chores that could have been done while I was gone.
I love that.
So now they know how to load and run the dishwasher and how to hand wash what needs to be hand washed. And they know how to start a load of laundry. And it paid off already. I came home after seeing the new baby, and they had worked together to clean up the kitchen, run the dishwasher, and it was so nice.
All right, Perigo kids.
I know. So I feel like, if anything, the quarantine forced me to teach my kids to do some chores, which I've obviously been negligent on.
Well, yours are doing chores. Mine aren't killing each other.
Yes. So what did you guys learn about yourselves this month? What are you going to take away from this chapter on happiness and family? Julie, what did you learn? What do you think sums it up for you?
Well, you've already mentioned this, Mindy, but I just loved her quote at the end of the chapter where it says, "It isn't enough to love, I must prove it." And I feel like I need that cross stitch somewhere in my house. Because like I said earlier, if phone calls aren't easy for me, then I found that there are ways that are easy. And I just need to use them because I do feel happier when I'm connected with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't need to look at excuses. I just need to do it and do my part.
Right. And that kind of goes along with doing things that make you feel uncomfortable, but in the long run, they make you feel happy.
Right.
Mindy, what are you taking away from this chapter?
Pretty much once the adjustments were made and we fell into a routine, I see this season as a gift. It's a gift of time. The reset button has been hit on all of life. I mentioned, how the strivings that we were so stressed about have ceased. money is being only allotted for the things that are important. And then the time just spent investing in things that didn't matter has all fallen away. It's almost like all those extra things have been shaken out of the life, out of our life, out of my time, out of my schedule. And the things that are important are what's left. And so what's left are the relationships. And I love focusing on those. And I really appreciate this season. And I think we'll always look back at 2020 March as a fond time, memories made we would have never been able to do had we not been given this gift of the season. And so while it's difficult, while we need to be in prayer for our country, our nation, our world, I want to invest in the people that are the most important and come out on the other side and somehow a better place.
Mm-hmm. I think I've learned that there's really no substitute for time. It takes time to teach and learn new skills. It takes time to connect with people on a meaningful level. It takes time to be able to reflect and genuinely be grateful. And I'll just be honest about myself. When my kids came home on March 5th and said their school was shut down and their teachers had kind of hinted that they would be home now until after spring break, I railed against that in my mind. I protested and kicked and stomped my feet that why I'm looking at a whole month now here. Like, I just wanted to throw up my hands and say, I can't do this. Like, what are we going to do? Like, we don't have any travel plans. We don't have any sports going on. How are we going to fill the time? We're going to kill each other. And then when we heard right before spring break that actually we weren't going to go back until April 6th, I railed again, but this time it was at a lesser level than I had railed on March 5th. So I was almost like, okay, I'm still mad about this, but I see that I've survived the last 2 weeks. Now, yesterday, I found out that we are not going back until April 24th, if we go back at all. And my kids came down the stairs, and they were the ones railing against it. They were the ones. Lauren was reading off the text message response in her group, and all the kids were like, no, I can't believe this. I seriously am not going to make it. We have to go back to school. And that was such a change from the kids' responses earlier in the month. And, I feel like I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I'm going to have a 6-month summer this year in 2020.
Right.
One of the things that Gretchen wrote about was that an important exercise for happiness is to look for ways to eliminate the causes of unhappiness. And if that isn't possible, then to deal constructively with negative emotions in difficult situations. And it's not possible for me to remove these shutdowns. It's not possible for me to make school go back in session. I can't make my kids' sports start back up. I can't make my son's work open back up. I have to find a way to be positive and do constructive things in this season. And so I think that's what I've been trying to do is just refocus my mind on, well, what can we do? And if mom can get refocused, then usually the rest of the family can get refocused. So I guess that's what I've taken away this month.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to be the ones to set the tone, but we've talked about that before. We have that capability and people look to us for that. And sometimes it doesn't seem fair. It's like you want to be mad, you want to be
right.
Yeah. There was
your chance to be whiny too.
It's true. Gretchen wrote, let's see, she had some secrets of adulthood that I think fit very nicely here. And one of them was that cheerfulness is contagious, but crabbiness is even more contagious. That was one of on her list. And I was like, that is so true. And as the mom, we really do get to set the tone for our homes. And if we're crabby, definitely everybody's crabby. I mean, we almost aren't allowed. And if we are, we need to go for a walk and get it in a better place. Cheerfulness can be contagious. And that's really what we want, especially all together for so much time.
Right. And I read this little thing on the internet this week, and I didn't write it down, but it was something about how our kids later in life, when they look back on this time, they won't really remember a lot of the things that we're super anxious about. And they may actually look back on it with fondness of having had extra family time and this long vacation from school and doing things that they don't normally get a chance to do. And I think that we've talked about this before this year, like the things that stick out in your mind are things that you don't do all the time, and you don't get the rest of the school year off all the time. I mean, they're never going to forget how they spent their time. So I am trying to be cognizant of that and make it so that they do remember it in a somewhat fond way. I don't want them to remember their mom being frustrated the whole time. And honestly, sometimes it just takes us to get to a point of acceptance. And now I pretty much am, and I'm ready to just kind of embrace it and do the best we can. I mean, I know they came downstairs yesterday thinking, oh, we're going to set mom off by this news. But I was kind of like, oh, I kind of thought that might happen, guys. And then they were the ones, I think, that felt free to say, I hate this.
Isn't that funny how it's just so opposite now with kids? They never would have said, I wish I could go to school. I just wish I could go back there. And you're like, wow, where was this attitude a month ago?
I know. Imagine how exciting the first day of school in August will be. I mean, it's going to be a party for parents and kids alike. I think even teachers will be ready to go back by then.
Oh, it's so true. And ironically, this morning I woke up just so thankful that Abby's home until August, but also realizing we're going to have a very large adjustment when she moves back to Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. You know, because I'm not used to her being in the house as much as what she will be. And so it's going to be hard to say goodbye to two of my kids at the same time.
Oh, that's true.
In the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but thinking of kind of the spiritual element in all of this too. I've seen a lot of people say, you know, like things on the internet that say, okay, I've cleared your schedule. There are no sports.
Right.
There is no work. There's no entertainment. There's nothing. Like, so are you going to pay attention? You know, it's like God is saying, are you going to pay attention to me now? Are you going to give me any time? Right. And this year, I've been trying to follow the liturgical calendar, like starting with Advent and then Lent. Mm-hmm. It's not something our church has necessarily done historically. And so I just haven't been really familiar with it. And so for Lent, you know, I thought, well, what could I give up? You know, and it seemed silly, like, oh, I'm going to give up soda. Well, like, how does giving up soda make me closer to God? You know? Mm-hmm. And I was reading Ann Voskamp, and she said, you know, what will you give up that will bring you closer to God? Like, what can you do without to bring more of God into your life? And we've just all been given that opportunity. You know, you didn't even have to think of something to give up for Lent. It's been done for you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, that's
Julia,
true.
My thoughts have been exactly there with you, especially on Sundays, the last 2 Sundays. I just think, you know, the Lord allowed this to happen during this time for a reason. And the season of Lent is to prepare the way for Christ, to prepare our hearts for Christ at his death and his resurrection. And so what better way than to essentially fast from the things of the world? And how can we get closer to him? You know, how can we be the church when we are in our neighborhoods, you know, when we're stuck in our neighborhoods? What are the things he wants to show us during the season of Lent? And I just think that it's so beautiful that it coincides right now with what's happening.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So timely time of year for this shutdown and a timely time for this chapter on family. And I really enjoyed hearing your insights on this, Julie and Mindy. Listeners, if you've been reading the book along with us and you just went through your chapter in March on family, we would love to hear the insights that you've gained during this time of shelter in place and spending extra time with family. You can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com or contact us on Instagram at midlifematterspodcast. We'd love to hear from you. All right, Julie and Mindy, it's time to move into our I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
This week, as I pondered all of the things I could be a fan of, one thing in particular stood out, and that is Wi-Fi. I am a huge fan of Wi-Fi. I'm so thankful.
Yes.
That we have access to our school, our church, our friends, entertainment, as Julie mentioned earlier, all forms of entertainment, workout videos, recipes. I mean, the sky's the limit. I'm just so thankful that we are not completely shut off from things like that.
Yeah. No, I know. I've said many times it would be even worse if we did, like if our internet went down and we were even more disconnected. So
that's right.
Yes, I think we're all fans of Wi-Fi this week, Mindy. Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, I'm a fan of the new Netflix original called The English Game.
Oh, I saw you post about that, Julie. It looks good. Tell us about it.
When you first hear about the subject matter, you might go, ugh. But it's about the history of football, which is soccer in England, which I have zero interest in soccer. But this shows how the game evolved into the modern sport it is. I think it takes place in like 1879. How it affected communities, the economics, friendships, even family relationships. Like it was a very divisive process getting it.
Wow.
Because it started out as a very much a gentleman's game for the elite rich. And this is about a mill town that has a team and how they kind of interject themselves into the sport. And it's just so good. It's from the creators of Downton Abbey. There's a lot of relationship stuff too. It's not just about soccer.
Yeah.
And I think it's just this one season, so you can start and finish it, I think, in 6 or 7 episodes. But I finished it in 2 days. It was great.
I am definitely going to check that out. I love all English TV, and that sounds like a great series.
And my family loves football, so I believe we would all be interested in that as well.
Yes. I think that might be a great one for families to watch together.
Yes, and I will say it's very family friendly. Let me add that.
Okay.
Which is kind of unusual sometimes, but it is very family friendly.
Right. All right. I'm a fan this week of something called True Lemon, and you get this on Amazon. It's crystallized lemon to put in your water, tea, or recipes. And it's 0 calories, 0 sugar, unsweetened, non-GMO. I think it really is just like crystallized lemon. And the reason we ended up buying this was because my husband was trying to give up Diet Mountain Dew, but he needed to replace it with other drinks. So he's been replacing it like with tea, but he's also been putting this True Lemon, a little packet, either in his tea to flavor it more, or like just even in cold water, just to make the water lemon flavored. And you get 100 in a pack for about $6. So they really go a long way. They also have True Orange if you wanted your drink to have more of an orange flavor. So I'll put a link to this on Amazon, the little True Lemon packets. You could even put a few in your purse and use them if you wanted to add them when you're out, like to water bottles or to water in restaurants. They're really quite handy.
That sounds good.
It does.
Yeah, so check it out if you're looking for something to flavor your drinks. That's what we're a fan of this week, listeners. We'd love to always hear what you're a fan of on Instagram each week. We try to put pictures of what we're a fan of, and we would love to get new ideas and recommendations from you guys, and we'll be happy to repost them. So feel free to tag us at Midlife Matters Podcast and tell us what you're a fan of this week. Julie and Mindy, it's always so fun to get together, and it's even more fun to see your faces during this shutdown. Real live conversation via the computer.
I must say I was really looking forward to this today.
Oh,
yeah, you guys are the first thing on my schedule. The only thing.
In a week.
Exactly. That's right.
All right. I'm hoping that when this is released in a week, we'll have heard good news, and maybe some of the things we'll be talking about, we won't be quite as restricted. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Sounds
Goodbye.
great. Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. If you'd like to get the show notes for today's episode, please email your name and address to midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com and write show notes in the subject line. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.